Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. She had a warm heart and a bright smile, but her life was not easy. Her mother had passed away when she was little, and soon after, her father married again. His new wife, Cinderella's stepmother, was a cold and cruel woman. She had 2 daughters who were just like her, selfish and unkind. Sadly, Cinderella's father also passed away, and now she was alone with her stepmother and stepsisters. They made her do all the housework. Every day, she swept the floors, washed the dishes, cooked the food, and cleaned the house. She had to sleep in the attic, on a small bed with only a thin blanket. Her stepsisters had beautiful dresses and soft beds, but they never shared anything with Cinderella. They laughed at her old torn clothes and called her names.
Look at her. She is always covered in cinders. Let's call her Cinderella,
they said, and they laughed cruelly. Even though her life was hard, Cinderella never became mean. She was always kind, always patient. She sang softly while she worked, and she made friends with the little mice and birds in the house.
At least I have you,
she whispered to them. The Royal Ball. One day, there was exciting news in the village. A royal messenger came with a special announcement from the palace.
The prince will have a grand ball. Every young woman in the kingdom is invited. The prince is looking for a bride.
Cinderella's heart filled with hope.
Maybe I can go too,
she thought. Her stepsisters clapped their hands with joy.
Oh, we must get new dresses. The prince will love us,
they squealed. Cinderella ran to her stepmother.
Stepmother, may I go to the ball too?
The stepmother looked at her and smirked.
You? Go to the ball? What will you wear? That old rag?
She laughed.
If you finish all your work and find something nice to wear, you can go,
she said. But in her heart, she had no intention of letting Cinderella go. Cinderella worked harder than ever. She scrubbed the floors, polished the silver, and helped her stepsisters dress for the ball. They wore silk gowns and sparkling jewels. Meanwhile, Cinderella's little animal friends helped her. The mice found ribbons, and the birds brought pieces of fabric. Cinderella sewed a beautiful dress from her mother's old gown. It wasn't grand, but it was lovely. When she put it on, she smiled.
Now I can go to the ball,
she said happily. But when her stepsisters saw her, their faces turned angry.
How dare! You try to look pretty,
they shouted. They tore her dress and pulled off the ribbons.
Now you have nothing to wear.
Cinderella fell to the floor, crying as they left for the ball. The Fairy Godmother. Just then, a warm golden light filled the room. A kind old woman with a shining wand stood before Cinderella.
My dear child, why are you crying?
She asked. Cinderella wiped her tears.
I wanted to go to the ball, but I have nothing to wear.
The old woman smiled.
Don't worry. I am your fairy godmother. I will help you.
Cinderella's torn dress transformed into a sparkling blue gown. On her feet were glass slippers that shimmered in the light.
But how will I get to the ball?
Cinderella asked. Her fairy godmother waved her wand again. A big round pumpkin turned into a golden carriage. 6 mice became white horses, and a fat old rat turned into a handsome coachman. Cinderella gasped.
It's wonderful.
But remember, my dear,
The fairy godmother said.
the magic will end at midnight. You must leave before the clock strikes 12.
Cinderella nodded.
I will.
She promised. Then, with excitement in her heart, she stepped into the golden carriage and rode off to the ball. The ball? When Cinderella entered the palace, everyone turned to look at her. She was the most beautiful girl in the room. Her stepsisters did not recognize her at all. The prince saw her and was enchanted. He walked up to her and said,
May I have this dance?
Cinderella's heart raced.
Yes.
She whispered, and they began to dance. They danced all evening, and Cinderella felt like she was in a dream. But then, ding, dong, the clock struck midnight.
Oh no.
Cinderella gasped. She turned and ran.
Wait!
The prince called after her,
I don't even know your name.
but Cinderella ran down the palace steps. One of her glass slippers slipped off, but she didn't stop. She jumped into her carriage. The carriage turned back into a pumpkin, the horses became mice, and her dress turned back into rags. She was Cinderella again. But she still had one glass slipper. She held it close and smiled. The search for the mystery girl. The next morning, the prince made an announcement.
The girl who fits this slipper will be my bride.
He searched every house in the kingdom. The stepsisters tried to squeeze their big feet into the shoe, but it did not fit. Finally, the prince reached Cinderella's house.
May I try?
Cinderella asked. The stepmother laughed,
You? No.
but the prince gave her the shoe. Cinderella slipped her foot in easily. It was a perfect fit. The prince looked at her and smiled.
I have found you.
Cinderella went to the palace, and soon she and the prince were married in a beautiful ceremony. The kingdom celebrated, and even the little mice and birds were happy. She never had to clean or wear rags again. She lived in the palace, where she was always kind, loving, and happy. And so, Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after.
If you liked the story, don't forget to leave your opinion in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will help you learn English. Also, hit the bell so you never miss any new videos. See you next time.